Hi guys, we Bob here, and New Year, Happy New Year to everybody. It's 2025, and this is my first video of 2025, and hopefully we'll get more videos out this year compared to last year. So, this is my oil painting, my whimsical winter wonderland painting that I've done for an Escape Motions competition. You can apply for it just now up until about the 15th of January, I think. So what inspired this? I was trying to think of how I was going to do my videos this year, and I thought about just going through each of the tools in turn, and I thought I don't use oils a lot, so I'll try oil painting. And I went to a guy called George. I want to say George Ireland, but it might be George, or it's a German name. He does all the kind of front stuff for Rebelle. Let me just have a quick scoot and see if I can bring up the website so that you can see it. There we go. So this is the image I used, which you can find on Escape Motion. This is my kind of reference image to begin with. And I'm going to talk you through the video, mainly just using, if I go back to Rebelle, mainly just using the oil brushes up here, as you can see, and going through the oil brushes and using the various tools along this section here to get to where I want to go. So what I was going to do is I'm going to play the video for you once I can bring it up. There we go. And it starts off, and I was just sitting going, what will I do for this Winter Wonderland thing, and what will I do for Escape Motions, well, for Winter Wonderland and for my YouTube channel, what videos will actually teach people some stuff, or how can I teach people about oils, because it's not something I am overly familiar with. So I started just looking at that image that I showed you a minute ago and starting to kind of get the pose correct, just chucking down colours. I did have a couple of other references which I'll try and kind of show you now. Let me see if I can pause this. Okay, so if I go back to my references on Rebelle 7 here, you can see I found this, I think, in the gallery. I found this in the gallery, I found this in the gallery, and I was trying to kind of combine these together along with this image I took from the movie The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio. So yeah, I tried to combine these into some sort of Wonderland picture, but that wasn't really the beginning point. The beginning point was really, how do I teach some oil painting? And one thing I would point out is the impasto depth can make quite a difference. So if you do come down to, trying to move my head out the road here, if you do come down to this icon here, and click it, you'll get the visual settings, and you can bring them up. And I know it looks quite complicated just with how many things I've got on the screen, but if you come down to oils, you can do the impasto depth, and you can increase the impasto depth or decrease the impasto depth down to nothing, or bring it up a wee bit so that you get some of those nice oil lines. If I remove the references, you can see the difference occurring on the background there on my picture, and you decide which part of it looks the best, and you can blend them out using the blenders. So let's go back to the display capture. So you can see I got to kind of point of just putting down and getting a general look to the image, looking at highlights and how the light would bounce off of one part and then to another. I was kind of going almost down an 80s nightclub route at this point, because Winter Wonderland and this challenge wasn't really at the forefront of my brain. It was, I see this artist's way of drawing and I want to try and draw it similar. How do I get there? And what I did find was I started struggling with values in oil painting. Even though I was using these references and I was trying to kind of sample off them, colour sample off them, I was like, how do I get the 3D-ness that I can get from using other mediums in Rebelle, like the charcoals and similar. And we got to this point and I was quite happy. I did do a lot of stage saving, as I've showed you in the past, with the different layers, where you get to a point in the drawing that you're happy with and you decide, okay, I'm going to actually save that and duplicate the layer so that I've got it there ready to use should I want it. I did like the kind of highlight, making the hair really dark, but the image itself was very flat. Now, some of the other tools I'm using here, and I will go into them a wee bit, is the Liquify tools, which I used a lot for proportions, and I used the proportion tools as well. And I'll go into them a wee bit later in this video. It's not going to be a massively long video, but I'm just trying to kind of teach you some of the tools that are in Rebelle 7. Somebody did ask me about clipping masks, so I'll talk briefly about that once we get to the end. But I just wanted to kind of go through and look at this painting and kind of try to show you that it's not always what you seem. You sometimes got to destroy what you've built to get to the painting that you want to draw or you want to paint. In this case, I had to really destroy all the values I had laid down and go really, really dark, which when I was starting to paint, I was like, that is really, really dark. But in this painting, when you compare one value to another, it can actually seem like a highlight. So I was using my references to try and get those values correct, to try and get my brain into understanding what values I needed to use on the closer part of the face to the further part of the face to try and get the 3D element to it. I was watching there's an oil painting video on YouTube where a guy takes an egg and he's trying to kind of teach you that, to teach you about the values that transition from one side of an object to the other. I haven't watched all of it yet, but it's well worth having a look. At this point I did start going down the kind of nun route, a covenant, and I was trying to come up with my winter wonderland. You would have seen a minute ago I did do some kind of northern lights. I was going to go down that route, and then I started looking at loads of kind of references for winter, which one of them was that Leonardo DiCaprio Revenant image that I was just going through Disney Plus and pausing and hitting screen capture, which I think is a really good way to get references if you're looking for something. If you find something that is visually stunning in a movie, then by all means pull it in and use it. And I think it worked quite well. At this point I was looking at either a doorway or a window and using that reference to really come up with the values of the forest and the tree look. So if I just pause this here and I bring that back up again, if I can find it. So this is the image grab that I took from The Revenant. I want to say it's The Revenant. I'm going to have to go and Google that now just to make sure I'm not talking rubbish. Yeah, so I wanted to watch The Revenant, which I've just went and checked to make sure I'm saying it correctly. The Revenant. So this is Leonardo DiCaprio's figure in the background here, and it does give you a kind of idea of the values that fade into the background with a kind of winter scene. You've got this very bold, dark tree coming out here, and I did think about just kind of using this as my base image, but because I'd started with that other drawing of the face, then this is where we ended up. But you can see the kind of where I've taken the reference from. You can see it's kind of used along with that image from The Revenant. Now it's not quite the same. You can see the differences there, but it did help me. It did help me to capture what it would be like to see a person standing in the kind of background of a main shot, which in this case is partly to do with the dead animal, which is kind of thankfully not as seeable, but you can see he's slept overnight, and there is, I think it's his horse that's in the foreground there. So that wasn't really part of my image, but it was just where you can get inspiration and where you can get references that might help you get to where you want to be. So let's see if I can get back to this and we can play. So you can see me continuing on here. You can see I'm putting that figure into the background there and adding some darkness to show the arms, some darkness to show the back of the legs, and then some light to show the sun beaming off the top of either hair or a hood of the figure. We're using some blue tones in the shadows, again taken mainly from the references, just looking at colour, trying to get that into your head as to what colour would be used, and it's not always the colour you think, like a dark grey. We can sometimes be kind of fooled in this, especially this drawing, those dark browns on the face closest to us, or the side of the face closest to us, really did, I struggled with them a lot. I did make a mistake here and I had to kind of go back in and touch up the painting because I'd put a stroke straight across her nose. But I did delete that. And I wanted to kind of get the Georgian glass look with this nun sitting next to either a window or a sliding door or something like that. And there's a passing by person. Now, I like people to come up with their own stories to what you can see, and I realise that I'm talking to the camera and you can't see me. But yeah, so that's where I was going with this drawing. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to probably turn off my face because otherwise all you'll see is the top of my hat. And I'm going to take you through some of the tools that I used and some of the process that was forming part of that painting. So bear with me. Okay, so here we are back. So initially it was just oils. I just picked the oil brushes, and there was no specific brush that I chose to go with. It was anything that really kind of worked. If you do want a kind of heavy impasto, you can use the thick hairy brush, which gives you the kind of impasto effect. Like I said, you can come down here, turn up that impasto effect. I did notice that I hit the paint texture earlier on. Again, you can affect that with the nanopixel technology that's in Rebelle, but you can see that impasto effect coming up, and each of the ones that you use gives a different. You can see that's almost blending out the impasto effect and leaving some of it. So it was really just dottering through the brushes and trying different things to see what worked and see what didn't work. Nothing really specific there. Jumping between, I just realised I was doing the wrong thing there. You want to be looking at these tools. So a minute ago I was in the blending brush, which blends the existing colour on the screen, and you can obviously see I can add in a nice kind of impasto effect. There's a couple of buttons here which affect the colour. I did try using these during the process where it picks up colour from the page. I do notice that it's not really doing it for some odd reason. Okay, so there is another two buttons here. I had a bit of an error earlier on there with these two buttons. So if we were to lay down like a browny orange colour, then change to a blue, and you've got those picked, you can see that you get a dirty brush. What you can do is you can also turn off the dirty brush and just the multicoloured brush and just bring up the dirty brush, and it should really start picking up. If you change to that, it should start picking up some of that other colour, and you can see you can start getting some nice colours appearing from that mixing that's going on. Well, worth a look at that when you get a chance. Okay, so don't worry too much about the layers. These are all just save stages that I've chosen to use. So what else did I use? So like I said, I used all the oils and jumped between each of these tools. I then did use some highlights later on. So for the sun, I used a dodge for getting some of that. You need to make sure you've got the right colour chosen, so getting some of that kind of sun ray coming through, you could use it to kind of give a bit of glow to your figure as well. Depends whether you want to bloom them out a bit more, which might work. You can see for yourself what the kind of result of that was. A lot of it I used was the proportion. I tried using this a few times now. This is where you can sort of change the look of your face. So if I wanted her kind of a higher face, that looks kind of nicer, but then that looks kind of just a different shape of the face. You can see how you can use the proportions. You can actually like section off a section to use that on, and then it only applies to that section. So let's say you're just trying to just do subtle changes to the nose. You may want a kind of more sloped nose. Make sure you hit the tick button afterwards. And there you go, there's a kind of new version compared to my older version. I think it's that one there. Yeah. So you can see subtle changes can make quite a difference to your picture. The other tool that I used quite a bit of was the Liquify tool. And I was using it earlier on for if you grab a line, you can actually kind of draw with that line to give some sort of, like if I was trying to do the hair like I did earlier on when I wasn't going for the kind of nun look. You can see how you can use that to pull out those nice streams of paint. You can also use the smudge tool to get some of that smudge effect, which can be nice. You're just trying to kind of pull something I mean, that looks very liquidy, which is why it's called the Liquify tool. Not really what I'm going for, so we'll go back to the beginning. Oops. But you can see you might want to fade that into the background, kind of smudge it in and fade it away to get a kind of blurred effect. And leave it like that. There's also these other things where if you make a brush, you can actually get a kind of odd look to the painting. Let me just change to Liquify. You can see how I can get a kind of glitchy look, which I think I've showed you a few times in the past. You can make your own brushes to give a fuzzy effect. Let's say you wanted that guy to be a bit fuzzy. You can see how that adds texture to that tree, makes it kind of look kind of cool. You can maybe use it a wee bit more subtly, just use wee bits to kind of give your tree a bit of texture. And so yeah, you can use that kind of stuff where I've just drawn a kind of basic window through the brush creator tool. Okay, so somebody did ask me about clipping masks. Now I did do a wee bit of trial and error with this, and if I left click the layer I want and add a clipping mask to it and then click the layer below, what I can do is I can bring the layer above in almost like through a window, so you can see by painting in dark or white, I can bring up the image on the layer above. Now the good thing here you can see is that the impasto effect is taking hold on both layers and kind of additive, and putting them together in an additive kind of way. So it does give you some control over the impasto look. So you could remove the impasto completely from that layer, or add impasto at a later date by using this tool with the clipping mask. So not something I've tried before, I've actually just discovered it while doing this. It does kind of give a nice effect to the window. If I was to bring in the window and try and get some of those streaks as though the light's kind of hitting off some sort of glassy surface. So that's clipping masks. Okay, so I did have some issues there, but we'll go on to layer mask. So if you want a layer mask, if you look down here, what I've done is I've got a layer below, which includes my specky drawing, Indiana Jones Spectrum magazine cover. And what I can do is I can add a layer mask, so right click, add layer mask, and then when I draw I can add in some of that angel picture into the kind of mix. If you don't want that, you can go back to white, and the white will show, that'll delete the bit that you've just revealed. If you go to black, you can see I can add more. If I come over here, I could add a wee bit in at the back if you were just trying to get something kind of appearing from the background, if we went for a more fuzzy look. See if I can get this to, yeah, you can see how you could fade that in like a dream. Perhaps that's what's in our mind. If you wanted kind of fuzziness, obviously I need to bring up the opacity, which is what's causing me the problems. And you can see how you can use that in design, especially. I mean, it looks pretty cool. Not what I was going for, but it gives you the idea of what a layer mask does. So let me just bring back up the camera and I will say Happy New Year to everybody. I hope this video has been of use to you. If you could like and subscribe, put out on the YouTubes, that would be great. If you like it, it does put out on the YouTubes more, and more people can get to see this, more people can learn what Rebelle is and how good Rebelle can be, and hopefully we can grow the community. So thank you very much for watching, and Wee Bob is out. Bye.